So that's where I'm
Well,
at on
I
it. I
think
don't
very much one of the issues that we've had over the last few decades is the fact that Christians have taken themselves out of politics and
right,
they have taken their faith out of their politics.
right.
And,
Yes.
I'm sorry, but what ends up happening, that is one of the reasons that we have seen this rise that has happened through legislation or through
Mhm.
movements,
Yeah.
or abuses of legislation, like, the abuse of Title IX and everything,
Mhm.
is because we have taken ourselves out of the politics and
Yeah.
we're afraid to,
Assert
make
our belief
political
system.
decisions based
Yeah.
on our life choice, like how we would live our lives. And
Right.
that's why we've seen an erosion of religious liberty
Well, and that's
where,
why now all of this bad legislation is being passed and people, Christians, start going, "Wait a second, wait a
well,
second,
wait a
wait a
minute.
second." And it's like, "Well, you pieced out and you handed over the reins and didn't wanna talk about your religious beliefs that are fundamental to your core humanity, and this is what's gonna happen." And so now there's a quote unquote revival because everybody's going, "Well, it wasn't working the way we were doing it. How about we just get honest about what we believe and let's talk about it?" And people are hungry for that now. And my hope is that there's this whole group, this whole segment of society inspired by someone like Charlie Kirk. I hope they all find Bible believing, scripture preaching churches so that they can be powerful in both word and deed and their understanding of, the foundation of Christ's love for us. But Don Lemon wasn't wrong. You know what he is? He's mad. You can tell when
Yeah.
he's talking,
Well,
you
and
can
I'm
hear
only
he's
using
afraid.
him I used him as the audio for the example of the conversations that I was seeing
Yeah.
online. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people too, they're coming from a place where they believe, like we saw Tim Kaine make a comment about how our rights were not given to us by our creator, but they're given us by the government.
Yeah.
Because to think that they're given to us by our creator is theocratic. And I'm like, no one in that memorial is pushing for a theocracy. And I think a lot of times the idea of Christian nationalism is tied to either, it can be two things. It can be either a replacement of God with government, so a worship
Mhm.
of government, which is a big no no and is not at all what I saw in that memorial,
No.
or that it becomes a theocracy where where Christianity is pushed as the religion of the
Well, the
state.
state religion, right.
Yeah, and that like you have to follow it and you have to be a Christian in order to. That also is not like
What
we've
we're dealing
seen
with here.
countries where there is, I mean, what's funny to me is like they're not particularly upset of the, UAE or anything like that, or Saudi
Mhm.
Arabia, who is
Mhm.
primarily like they are a Muslim country. Like,
Right.
they're
Right.
okay. Like it's okay
Yeah.
over there and it's okay
Right.
if they want to bring it over here, but like the moment they see the open display of Christianity, especially a Protestant
Mhm.
Pentecostal, display of Christianity, they get
Mhm.
like really nervous. And
Yeah.
I wanted to actually
Because it's
share these.
powerful,
Well,
actually.
it's powerful, but also like I have a few X posts here that I thought gave a good contrast between the two before I go ahead and start wrapping us up. So this is Bridget Fennessy, and she's a comedian. She's pretty centrist, and she is I believe on with like the two-way platform. And she
Mhm.
says, "I'm seeing the media try to grapple with what happened yesterday, and it dawns on me that they have no framework for this. If anyone in America lacks representation, it's people of faith. Belief in God has been mocked and trivialized. It's a punchline at best." And
Like
I'm
I
like,
said, we've taken God out of everything, so now they're having to grapple with this idea of it existing and people being Christian and political at the same time. They don't even know what to do with that.
yeah, like they're weirded out by it. And so this is
Mhm.
also Kazin that he, like the gentleman that we just listened to talk about his experience at the memorial. He also posted this on X. He goes, "It's not Christian nationalism. It's the revival of Christianity in our nation. And we need it. Social ideology is a poor substitution for God." This is a quote. "Our Constitution was made only for moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." That is John Adams. Then he goes, "Christian nationalism is the unification of church and state. No one is calling for that. The founding fathers understood freedom of religion is essential. They also knew morality and virtue are things government can't do for society. those things are in the dominion of God. And I just want to share that this is like, these are not Christians. These are
Mm-mm.
people who understand the importance of having a country that has that is rooted in a faith, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to force it. Like you're not going to force it on
Right.
everyone. We're not a theocracy here. That is not what the
Mhm.
founding fathers established, and that is nowhere where anyone is wanting to go.
Right.
And then on the other coin, I thought these were interesting, which they were much more kind of reflective. So this is Thomas Carlton Williams. He's an author over at the
Chat
at
Chatterton
Chatterton.
Williams.
Sorry,
Mhm. Mhm.
Thomas Chatterton Williams. He
Mhm.
is over at the Atlantic. And he has, for those of you who aren't watching, there's two pictures of the memorial service at Turning Point, of Turning Point. And it says, because it has a Turning Point logo, I should say. It says, I've spent half my adult life living in one foreign country or another, and I don't think I've ever felt so estranged from the surrounding culture as I am from the aesthetic and sensibilities of this movement. Not even a criticism, I feel more at home in Greece than in these images. So he is just having an issue with the way it looks.
Yeah.
Like, this looks weird. It looks foreign to me. It looks déclassé is almost how it
Mhm.
comes off. And so he's like, I don't even feel I like this is the most American expression that you will see within a good majority of the country, especially in the middle of the country, and he just cannot wrap his brain around it.
Mhm.
And then this last one is Dan Williams. So this is a Brit. And I thought this one was interesting, especially the replies of it, which I'll summarize. It says, watching the Charlie Kirk memorial, I'm struck about how extremely culturally distant I feel from this world. Everything about it feels alien. The aesthetics, symbolism, music, rituals, mythology, gurus, ideas, and norms. It feels like being exposed to the culture and symbolic universe of a distant tribe. If I reflect on this, it occurs to me that this feeling must be symmetrical, that they must view the kind of cultural universe I inhabit as similarly alien. And in a strange way, despite opposing almost everything about this political project, this reflection makes me feel more empathy for what the project must feel like from the inside. And
Hmm.
now, this one I found particularly interesting because many of the replies actually focused on pointing out that is not symmetrical. It is
Mhm.
actually asymmetrical because we as Christians live in the world. We are
Mhm.
constantly bombarded with the world that these two individuals live in,
Mhm.
but they're
That's
not
right.
exposed to ours.
Correct.
And that is why ours comes off as so foreign. And it
Mhm.
almost roots back to like, you know how like a lot of times there was always, especially when I was growing up, there was always this language that a lot of bigotry or prejudice comes from ignorance and for
Mhm.
something being unfamiliar, feeling uncomfortable and therefore threatening.
Mhm.
And I think that's very much what this situation has exposed.
Yeah,
That,
I think what oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
The last one is interesting, and I was reading, I was like, "Huh, that's an interesting thought," and then I realized, no, as Christians, we are forced to consume and understand the viewpoint of progressives and leftists and how they view God and religion. We see it all the time. That display must feel weird to them if they've never stepped foot in any type of church in their life, if they've never talked to an evangelical or a Republican. But we, as Republicans, see on X and social media all the time the left's idea of church. We see, lady Episcopal priests running around with rainbow flags all the time. And that's what they think of as religion. And we have to consume that kind of like skin suit religion, which
Yeah.
we know that's wrong, but they don't ever have to confront a small parish down the road that sings hymns and the families are just generally kind of nice and then they have coffee and then they go home. Like they don't ever have to experience that or talk with a Republican gun owner that is a deacon on the church staff. And so no, we do know the world, the cultural world you live in because we live in that. But then we also live in the very real world that we inhabit as Christians. And so no, you don't understand. We're not the
Well, and I
same
think that's where this Christian nationalism panic comes from,
because they're just
you know?
scared. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Well,
just,
and the
there's
first one